I'm Nicole Borrelli. I'm a developer programs engineer at Google, and I'm going to be chatting to you about Android Q, Android 10. I didn't update my slides, sorry. Getting ready for the changes in the privacy thing. So, let's see what's going on. Okay, so way back in 2009, we had Google I/O, and Android had been out for a while, and we were talking about how much Android had grown. And was on a ton of different devices, over 145, and there were 350,000 activations a day. I can't even imagine how much that is. But you know, since then, there's been a few more people that have picked up Android, and it's like the world's largest operating system. And so now our users sort of want to have more from their device. And a lot of this has to do with privacy. And so this is one of the main themes that we had for Android 10. So there are a couple of different areas we thought about how to make these changes. So the first one is we wanted to give users more control. So the users want to have access, want to be able to control what access and data that apps get. So in order to support this, we updated the system UI to give more of these settings, expose them more easily, and that sort of thing. The framework APIs we updated so that developers, such as you, have these opportunities to access certain functionality that might have led to getting access to more information than you particularly needed, while still being able to do what you wanted to do. And then lastly, we've been working with Google Play and the Play policy team so that we can enact Play policy around some of these changes that might have been supported in the platform in Android 10, but we'd like to have a more consistent behavior across all of the ecosystem. So for the rest of the talk, I'm going to be showing these little anecdotes sometimes to lead off some of the reasons why we might have done something. And so here's one of the ones where this user is not particularly happy that an app was using GPS in the background. And now we sort of understand that. And the difficulty was before Android Q, Android 10, you basically had a choice when you were, particularly if you're the user, whether you wanted to grant access to your location to an app or not. And so that's why one of the big things that we wanted to do in Android 10 was to make it so that there was more of a choice here. And so now we have this allow only while the app is in use, which would have addressed that user's concern. Now while the app is in use is a bit more than just while it's in the foreground. Foreground services also work. So for example, you should be able to do turn-by-turn navigation with Google Maps, only allowing it to have access in the foreground. So that's neat. Another nice part about this option is if you are targeting Android 10, you can simply request access in the foreground. So if you have, so we have this My Train commute. And when you start up the app for the first time, it wants to know what your location is. And so it might say, how about granting me access to your location while you're using the app? Then the app can figure out what location you're at and show you the appropriate train schedules. The app should be able to fall back and not rely on this. If I don't want to tell it where I am, I should be able to just pick, oh, I'm at, Penn Station, and it should just show me the schedule there. But this is a nice little helpful thing. The other neat thing here is that we have our commute app, and we can say, oh, how about you grant us access to the location while the app is in use? I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It makes it easier. I don't have to pick the station anymore. And let's say that I've been using it for a while, and I'm, enjoying some of the features. And one of the things that it does is it will tell me bus delays or whatever as I'm going around the city. So I like this idea, and so I want to opt into these sort of notifications for when there's delays or whatever. So now what the app can do is it can incrementally request background permission. So if I click a button accidentally, or I don't really understand that it will need it in the background, then it pops up this. And now I have the choice to grant the permission or to just leave it as foreground permission. So at this point, the app isn't really putting as much out there, because even if you don't want to accept the permission, you still have the location permission while the app is in use. So the way that accessing it in background works is, so this is how we would request course location before, because if I'm just doing general commute schedules, that I might only need that. And now if I want to access it in the background, I can add this other permission. And then, so then to access the location, I can do this. And if I wanted to add background permission, I could add it to the request. You can do them at the same time, but then that risks the user denying the location permission entirely. And so asking for exactly what the minimum that you need when you need it is the right way to go. To check for the location permission, it's pretty standard. Check self. And this works really well with the AppCompat version, so that will work there. And then you can also check to see if you have access in the background. And like I said, a foreground service counts as while the app is in use because there is this visible UI for the user. There is one little thing though here. The foreground service requires a type in order to be delivered location updates. And so where you declare your service, you have to set in there foreground service type and put location. The really tricky part here is that the foreground service type is a new API that was introduced in Android 10, but you have to use it. Otherwise, if you're on Android Pie or lower, Android 9 or lower, and the user upgrades, your app will keep all the time permission. So you'll be able to access it in the foreground and the background. But if the user goes in and denies background access, if you don't have this in your manifest, then you won't get location updates while you're using a foreground service. So I guess that's the motivation to target SDK Android 10. So yes, just keep that in mind. So external storage. this one was a really fun one. I think that we all enjoyed the roller coaster. And so let's just chat a bit about storage in general. So this is sort of, we have internal storage and external storage. We're calling it common storage because, if you're, many devices now just have like a built-in SD card. I understand that that's not universal, but a lot of us do. So we usually talk about common storage. Internal storage is exactly the way that it has been. It's private to your app, it's encrypted, no other apps can get access to it. Caveat here about sharing user ID, but no other apps other than those can get access to your files. So then we have in common storage, we've got the files that are in get external files dir. These are the files that you can access. So these files are particularly complicated to access, sort of. Up until Android K, KitKat, API level 19, you had to have external read and write external storage permission to access them. From API 19 up, you can, including now, you can access them without any permission. So if you just get external files dir, you can, if your min SDK is 19 or above, you don't have to worry about storage permission. If it's below that, then you have to worry about it up until 19. Then we've got the sort of the rest of storage, which is, all of the stuff in Media Store and the downloads and other user files that are on the device. So this is basically the view that you had before. You had your app external storage, which you could read without permission, and then you had everything else which you needed storage permission for. In Android 10, a little bit different. So, like I said, this is still the same, actually. Get external files there, you can read and write to it, no problem. Media Store, you can contribute to Media Store without any permission. So if you want to create a camera app and you just want to take pictures, you don't need any storage permission at all. You can submit it and boom, everything's done. And you can read your own files without any permission. So again, if you have that camera app, you can take pictures, you can contribute them, and you can query Media Store and it will show you all of the pictures that your app took. If you want to access other pictures or other movies or that sort of thing that other apps created, that's when you're going to need to request read external storage. And then there's the downloads and other files. These are, if there's two ways to access it. Normally, the recommended way is to use the storage access framework, and I would recommend taking a look at that because that is definitely the way that we want to go forward. We don't want, because essentially when a user downloads a file, it's sometimes the user is downloading like, a Garfield comic, and other times they're downloading their bank statement. And it's just really difficult to say, to either to tell the user or to handle, or to have a permission for us that sort of weighs the imbalance in the data that's in these files. So that's why we recommend using the storage access framework, and that's what we really want to move forward with. And these are the files that basically belong to the user. So when the app is uninstalled, they stay there because they're the user's files and not the app's. Yeah, and this is just showing that. Okay, so if we want to add a file to Media Store, we can put in our values to create that match the file that we wanted. We say that it's pending. This is an Android 10 thing. In previous versions, you can actually do the rest of this, except you can't put is pending. And there's just no column for it. And then you just insert it. If you look at the APIs, you'll notice that there was insert image, and that was deprecated. It was mainly deprecated because what it would do is it would take your lovely bitmap, and then it would compress it using really, really lossy JPEG, and then put it into the Media Store, which is not the greatest thing when you take like this beautiful 4K image and then it's downsized. So you can use insert from API level 1. So, and then to continue, we get a file descriptor with the item that we got back. And then when we're done writing it, we can set the is pending to 0 and update it back into Media Store. Discovering files. Data columns are deprecated. We've been taking away several different columns. Data column used to be the direct file path to it, and that we're trying to move away from that. So because of that, we recommend using the content resolver, open file descriptor. If you need to open the file descriptor and then pass it into native code, you can open the file descriptor and then detach the FD and pass it in, and then you can take the integer file descriptor and then handle it in native code, and you just have to remember to close that. This is for querying. We say that we want to get videos from the current volume. We include pending items, so like ones that we are contributing that aren't finished, not that other apps are contributing, because there's no way to know what state those are in. We can open the file descriptor, and we can load the thumbnail of an image. So you can edit apps. You can edit files from other apps if you have the permissions. They need to be granted by the user, and basically the easiest way to handle it on Android 10 is to use this recoverable security exception. Essentially what you do is you just try to do the edit. It will throw a recoverable security exception. If you catch it, inside there it has metadata to show a dialog so that the user can grant the permission, and then I think it's a pending intent, and then you'll be able to just write the file. So background activity starts. The difference between Android Pie and Android Q, this is what drove a lot of this change. So we see here we're in Google Maps, and okay. What ended up happening is that there was an app on here that would show full screen ads, and so what happened is that anytime that the phone was idle for like 15 seconds or so, it would pop up a full screen ad and force the navigation into picture-in-picture mode, and then when it would go back to the app, it would immediately pop open another thing, and so that's why we tried to block that. there are different conditions where you can these. So if you have a window in the foreground, if your activity is in the backstack, so like if you did start activity for result on some other application, you could still launch another activity even though your activity isn't the most foreground activity. If you're bound by a system service, so accessibility or autofill, so you can pop up dialog boxes if you are an autofill service or part of the accessibility service. If your app receives a pending intent from the system, this does not include like Alarm Manager though. Then if you are receiving a broadcast for something that's expected to show UI, such as new outgoing call. If you don't fall into one of these cases and you want to show something, like you want to start an activity from the background, what are you supposed to do? Well, the best way to do it is to show a high priority notification with a full screen intent. Because then if the user is using the app, if the user is using their device, it shows the notification, and if the device is locked or whatever, it will show that full screen intent. I think that most of us know like how the dialer works or how the alarm clock UI looks. Permanent IDs. Some users really don't like these. So we've updated it so only the system apps and pre-installed apps can access IMEI and the build serial numbers. If you are targeting, if your target SDK is 10 or higher, Android 10 or higher, then you'll get a security exception because you can't access them. If it's earlier, then you'll just get, if your target SDK is earlier, then you'll just get null if you have a read phone state. So what should you be using instead? If you're going for analytics, then we suggest using a per app, per device UUID. If you're trying to track cross-app installations, you can use Secure Settings Android ID. You can also use this, or if you're doing free content, like when your user signs up, they get access to a gift or whatever. Another thing to keep in the one idea is to use Android ID. Another idea is to use the Widevine ID. Again, that's because that's per device, per user for your package, and it doesn't change. And for ads, definitely use the advertising ID. This way, the user can reset that when they need to. So obviously, if you can, based on that guidance, you have to ask, do you really need to have read phone state permission? If you don't, just remove it. If you need it up until Android 10, then set the max SDK to 28 because it won't be able to be granted for you on API 29. So Wi-Fi. So on Android Q, apps can't toggle the Wi-Fi on and off. What they can do though, and they can't get configured network and updated. There are some APIs to connect to propose Wi-Fi connections, but I'm blanking on the name of it right now. If you want to look at, if you're looking for Wi-Fi access points or Bluetooth scanning, you need to have access find location, because we can figure out where users are now. And yeah, so these are the ones that will require the find location. Basically, one of the things that we're trying to do with our update to Android 10 is try to really make ourselves and other developers think about certain things. Like, do I really need this data? Like, what am I actually asking for, say, the IMEI for? Is it because I need to do something with telephony, or is it because I just want to know that this is the same device as this other one? If it's the latter, then there's probably a better way to do that. That suits the use case more, fits the use case more. Do you really need to ask for all the permissions up front? I mean, I think that all of us have been there where you open an app and the first thing it does is pops up 3 permissions, and then when you deny any of them, it just says this app can't work. And that's really frustrating, because it's like, well, I just want to see what this app is about. Why do you need to access my camera? And so, like, trying to make sure that you wait until you actually need to have access to that personal information is when you want to ask for the permission. Always make sure to check that the permission is still active. Users can go in, and they do go in and revoke permissions in the back, like while your app is in the background or isn't running. If a user revokes a permission, your app is killed. So you don't have to worry, like, the process should be killed. So it shouldn't be like, if you're in the middle of taking a video, you don't have to continuously ask if you still have camera permission. But when you start activities, do make sure to do that. And really consider what to do if the user denies your permission. Like, if you're making a camera app or a video app or like a voice memo taker, and the user denies, camera or microphone permission, I mean, it's probably appropriate to be like, we can't actually do the main purpose of this app without this permission. Please consider enabling it. But I mean, even with the My Train commute, if I don't want to grant it access to location permission, it should be able to work. I mean, I should be able to go in and pick where I am, and it should just show me schedules and act as though that's what it received from GPS. And then if you're doing things in the background, like, make sure that the user is aware of this. And this is not only accessing location, but like uploading or downloading large amounts of data and that sort of thing. If it's something that the user should be aware of, then it's probably appropriate to use a foreground notification so that they can see it. Potentially, with Work Manager and the constraints there, it can also be really helpful to give the user an option. Like, if you do need to download lots of data periodically in the background, ask, is it okay if I use your mobile network to grab this stuff? Or should I wait until there is an unmetered network? So that's about it. Thank you very much.